Well, hello everyone. I know it's been a few days since I've done a video. Sorry, life unfortunately kind of gets in the way when you're basically working from 7:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. Not a lot of time for recording, especially when you're dog-ass tired. It's just the way it is. So I'm going to do my best to plow through and record when I can and mass record when I can, so that way I can continue the content stream throughout the course of a week. So here we are, got some time off work, going to mass record. So we're starting off with the weekly Q&As, and this is going to be part 1 of 2 of this weekly Q&A, as a standard has become to do 2 parts. Part 1 is going to be focused on the NFL and football as a whole. Part 2 on everything else sports and non-sports related. So let's go ahead and kick it off with part 1 of this Q&A. Vincent Lospinosu. I'm used to calling you Jeff Seago, so let me try that again. Rewind it back. Vincent Los Pinuso. Better, I believe. You can check me, Vinny, on that one. Your thoughts on the LeSean McCoy situation? Yikes. Not too many people asked me about this. I was kind of surprised. Yeah. If true, not only should LeSean McCoy be cut by the Buffalo Bills, he should no longer ever be allowed to be on an NFL football field again, a football team again. He should never be allowed to do anything involving the league again. He should also be in prison for a long, long time. You should be talking about potentially planning a robbery and theft, breaking and entering. Like, that should be sending him to a federal joint for years, if it's all true. And it very well might be. It also may not be, because apparently this lady that was living in his house was some piece from the past, and she refused to leave. And I'm sure there is a lot more to the story. LeSean McCoy could have totally planned this. This could have been something that somebody else did entirely on their own, that knew LeSean McCoy and or the woman and happened to know where jewelry was and so forth. This could have just been some completely random crap. And she could have planned it, and all other possibilities in between. We cannot dismiss any of them at this point until we know more evidence. And ultimately, if charged and brought to trial, LeSean McCoy deserves the same basic rights that everybody else should have in this country, which is innocent until proven guilty. So I will reserve full judgment on it till I know more. But I will say, if true or somewhat true, never should be on an NFL field again. If not true, and or we find out she had something to do with it, then she should be serving time in prison. Alex Saida asks, what position are the Bears lacking at the most this season? For me, I feel like it's offensive tackle. Like, if there is an area of real concern for me on that offense, it could be wide receiver, because what happens if Allen Robinson hurts his knee again? What happens when you're counting on Kevin White to give you anything, frankly, at this point? You'll be right back in the same situation you were last year. But in terms of lacking, I'm not very confident in their offensive tackles. Cards NMU. How was Mitchell Trubisky year 1 compared to Jared Goff year 1? I think you could see some similarities and some comparisons there. Like, Jared Goff was playing under a coach that didn't know what the hell he was doing on the offensive side of the ball. They lacked weapons on the offensive side of the ball. You could definitely see some similarities there from Goff year 1 to Trubisky year 1. And Bears fans certainly hope that the Goff year 2 is what you see out of Trubisky year 2. And I know I most certainly am. Because the bottom line is he's that guy right now, and the organization desperately, badly needs him to be that dude. Nothing but goodwill and good vibes from me, believe me on that one. So I'm hopeful that the comparisons in year 1 being similar is that year 2 will be similar as well. Akun Vince asks, what do you think makes a good quarterback? I think it's one of those things that you can have different traits that makes a guy a successful quarterback in the league, but you can come down to a few things that the majority of guys have. And sure, there are exceptions to the rule, don't get me wrong. but they have to be guys that are hardworking. They have to hit the film room as hard as they hit the practice field, if not harder, more consistently. They have to work hard. They have to have a great mind for the game to be able to break down and analyze defenses, to be able to use their eyes and be able to see the entirety of the field. I feel like accuracy is pretty important. I feel like the ability to move your feet within the pocket, not necessarily automatically having to be a scrambler, but being able to step up and move around the pocket, create space, create throwing lanes, buy extra time. Those are very, very important things. Those are some of the most important traits that I can think of that make a good quarterback. Lawrence Grani, do you think CTE will force the NFL to make major changes? Well, it feels like they've made some changes already. Could there be more changes made in the future? Perhaps. But ultimately, it's a violent game. It is what it is. And how much can you really legislate that before you eventually make it into flag football? JT Evans, what new rules or changes would help make the AAF or XFL successful? I don't know if any new rules or changes are going to do that. It's going to be about a variety of things that have very little, I think, to actually do with the style of play. Could that help a little bit? Perhaps, maybe, but it's going to come down to financial backing, commitment. It's going to take being in the right markets, having the right television deals, having the right distribution for your product, the right advertising, having recognizable, noteworthy players and stars, all of these different things. And even then, they're still facing a massive uphill battle here. Dirty Sam, could you see St. Louis ever getting another NFL team or maybe an expansion NBA team? For St. Louis, you've had multiple teams throughout the years be in St. Louis in terms of the NFL and leave, haven't we? I mean, you have. You've had the Rams there. You had the Cardinals there. Teams keep leaving for a reason, so no, I don't know that they'll ever get another NFL team. NBA team, as in like an expansion team, maybe a different story, but NFL, been there, done that, and I can't imagine the NFL ever being interested in doing that again, because they've been there multiple times now. Elliot Pytoski, what would be considered a successful, encouraging 2018 for the Chicago Bears? Some fans might look at it and say, like, if this team was in the playoff race and possibly snuck into the playoffs, that would be a successful and encouraging year. Perhaps. I don't know if it's that cut and dry. Because if the Bears won 10 or 11 games and Trubisky was trash, but they made the playoffs, then I'm just as concerned about the future as if they win 0-16. Because it really does fundamentally come down to what Trubisky does or what Trubisky doesn't. And I know that's a hell of a lot of pressure to put on a young man, but that's the reality of the quarterback position in the NFL. To me, a successful, encouraging 2018 for the Bears is solely and exclusively measured based off of Trubisky and his development, growth, and progression as an NFL quarterback in year 2. If he looks like he can be the guy long term, and this team wins 5 games or wins 11, I don't care. I will have hope for the future. This organization will have hope for the future, and things could pick up very, very quickly for that organization in the future. That's the measurement of success. It is Mitchell Trubisky, FTW, or bust. Nothing else matters. You could sit there and make it to the NFC Championship game behind a great defense and a great running game, but if you think Mitchell Trubisky is a Blake Bortles or Mitchell Trubisky is somebody like an Andy Dalton, then you're not getting to the dance and you're not going to be a championship team. And all of that progression into the playoffs isn't going to matter. Alex Shirley, 19. What was your opinion on Jamarcus Russell as a prospect in 2007? I thought months before the draft that he was going to be the number 1 overall pick. And he had all the talent, but was never really huge on him like as a long-term prospect. Are the Titans, a dark horse Super Bowl contender? It might be a bit early to say that, but who knows in that AFC? But it still feels like it's Pittsburgh and New England are kind of like the creme de la creme, and everybody else is kind of bringing up the back of the wagon. You try to figure it out. But Jacksonville, hell, they had a double-digit lead on New England in Foxborough in the AFC Championship game in the 4th quarter. Why couldn't the Titans do that this year? You never know. Chris Joseph, was what Penn State did between 2011 and 2016 a rebuilding mode? I suppose. It's kind of a random question. But you're trying to dismiss a legend and distance yourself from a legend that had meant so much to the program. Um, really weird, really odd. Yakum Flavor, how do you feel about Jared Goff so far? If you remember, leading up to the 2016 draft, I was pretty big on Jared Goff. I thought he was a future franchise NFL quarterback. Yes, I had Carson Wentz graded higher. Yes, I thought Carson Wentz was going to be a better NFL quarterback. But I also thought Jared Goff had some stud potential in him too. I thought he could be a guy, a potential franchise guy. So I feel like after 2 years of his career, he's being somewhat vindicated. Slim Gator, what's keeping Matt Ryan from the elite NFL quarterback talk other than his lack of a Super Bowl ring? I think it's a lack of truly great numbers. He's had some good numbers and he's had some consistent numbers over the years, but I don't know that he's had a lot of great seasons. I don't get why people would put him in that elite talk. I mean, he's top 8, top 10 maybe, but you talk about elite, you're talking about like top 4 or 5, and I don't view Matt Ryan as a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the league. I just don't. And I don't think it's the ring alone. Because if it was the ring alone, then Joe Flacco would be elite. Chet Awesome Laser. Which position can older NFL players stay elite at or better at longer than others, excluding like quarterback and kicker and punter? Okay, I think that's a good question. I feel like it's safety and probably the offensive line, especially the interior of the line. It feels like with safety that you don't have to be as fast. So if you lose a step, it's okay, but you gain so much in terms of knowledge and experience and football intellect and understanding of the game that you can mask that deficiency where maybe you used to run a 4.45 as a corner 10 years ago, and now you're running in the 4.6s. But you play like a guy that runs in the 4.3s because of your instincts, your awareness, your anticipation, the ability to read the quarterback's eyes, ability to read the offense, understand your role. I think you could play safety and play it still at a decent to high level well into your early and mid 30s. And offensive line, especially the interior of the line, strong is strong, and you can still be a strong guy in your mid 30s. You might lose some in terms of your footwork, but I feel like those are the positions that you can still be pretty productive and play at a high level, even as you get long in the tooth in your career. Braden asks, your opinion on Alabama's football program since Nick Saban took over? He has become the gold standard. That program is the gold standard. I mean, do I like everything about the way they go about it? No. But fuck it. There's no false pretense. They don't pretend to care about academics or pretend to care about athletes' discipline off the field. They're about winning and winning championships, and they don't pretend to be anything else, and I can at least respect that. Alan Graham, and also, if anything, they can potentially be good for the game because mainstream and casual sports viewers love dominant teams. They absolutely do. Hardcore, serious fans don't in a lot of cases, but mainstream casual ones do. Alabama's a recognizable program. They're a dynasty. They can be good for the sport because you can either love them or you can hate them. Alan Graham, one offensive and one defensive player you'd like to add to the Bears. Not necessarily superstars, but guys that you feel like could really help out in their role. That's an interesting question. One offensive player and one defensive player that I would like to add into the fold. Defensively, it probably would have been Honey Badger. I mean, I guess you could say he's a star when he's healthy, but he's had some trouble staying healthy. But I love the versatility and the variety of things that Tyrann Mathieu can do on the football field, and I felt like he could have been utilized well in the Bears system in 2018. In terms of on the offensive side of the ball, somebody that I think in terms of like a wide receiver that could help might have been like a Pierre Garçon. Reliable guy, steady guy, not a superstar, but somebody you can count on, but good in his role. Vincent Iguakum. Do you think Earl Thomas will end up in Dallas? Probably in 2019, yes. And also the best wide receiver in the National Football League. To me personally, I feel like that conversation starts with Antonio Brown and Julio Jones and probably ends there. Although you could obviously throw OBJ into the mix. But I think he's more about dynamics and dynamic things. I personally would rely upon Antonio Brown and Julio Jones a little bit more and still feel like they're 1A and 1B in the league. And Daryl Zero, excuse me, closes us out by asking first, what NFL teams that missed the playoffs last year will make it? If I had to throw it out there right now, just random. In the AFC, I might look to potentially the Colts and the Chargers. In the NFC, I would potentially look at the Cowboys, the Packers, and maybe the 49ers. That's just randomly off the top of my head. And then what NFL teams that made the playoffs last year will miss it this year? I think one of the 3 teams in the South for sure will probably miss it because it can be hard to have 2 straight years where 3 teams in your division go to the playoffs. There's still a part of me that wonders if the Rams might fall apart a little bit, but that could be a bit ambitious thinking that. Who else? Maybe Kansas City because you are going with a new quarterback in Mahomes. That's all I could think of right now. Again, just shooting it off the hip here. But anyways, that's it for part 1 of this weekly Q&A. Thanks again to all of you that submitted your questions. Part 2 will be coming up soon, so stay tuned for that.